Good afternoon. Welcome to the Cohn Zone Late Edition. We're your hosts, Cohn, Lowell Cohn. Title of today's show is Players the Niners Should Not Retain. We're going to look at it from the lens of Bill Walsh, who was brutal and made business decisions with his roster. And my dad covered Bill Walsh, so he'll be able to speak to this with authority. Dad, how are you?
I'm doing great, Iggy. It's great to see you.
I haven't seen you in a while. It's really good to see you.
Yeah.
Let's start though with Kyle Shanahan, who has been the most defended man in sports the last week. He lost the Super Bowl again, and miraculously, everyone rushed in the media to defend him. What do you make of this phenomenon, and what would you like to see the media coverage actually be with Kyle?
Okay, what I think we're going to do is we're going to, in a moment, list questions that the media should ask him and questions he should answer about that Super Bowl. I don't believe they've been asked, but I want to emphasize what Iggy just said. I've covered a lot of Super Bowls. I've covered a lot of 49er teams. I would say instantaneously after they lost the Super Bowl, fans defended Shanahan, and that's great. They're fans. They're supposed to do that. So I'm not talking about fans. I'm talking about people like Iggy and me, journalists. What I noticed, and if I'm wrong, please correct me, most of the local people gave reasons why we should think Shanahan did not screw up, i.e., he lost the game, but people immediately defended him. Why? Why would you defend the guy who loses? Isn't it more pertinent to ask, what could he have done better? Why did he lose, and what could he have done better? As opposed to this flock of lemmings that came and said, well, it wasn't his fault because of this. Why is that germane? He lost the game. You don't get credit for losing the game. Maybe, you don't get on solitary confinement, but you don't get credit. And certainly Ira Miller, Glenn Dickey, or I would have written and asked a lot, what could he have done better? Not unfair. And it's not personal. This is business, and it's serious business, because the fans take it seriously, the players and coaches do, and the media is supposed to. So let's say some things he needs to be asked.
Well, real quick, before we do that, I just want to say, when media people are engaged in defending Kyle, it's one step removed from the conversation. It's not really analyzing Kyle. It's analyzing the conversation about Kyle. People are being too hard on him. Don't blame him for this. Like, wait a second. You're a journalist covering this team, not the conversation about the team. Just want to point that out.
I love it.
Yeah.
So let's get into some things. And you know what? We're not going to talk about the coin toss thing before overtime. Yeah. It's been talked to death. I think people know how Grant and I feel about it. Let's leave that aside. Let's talk about other things that Kyle has to answer for, like the third quarter. Everybody talks about, boy, this guy's a great play designer and a great play caller. There's all this motion, and you never know where it's coming from. And he has a zone blocking scheme like his dad. So how come he scored no points in the third quarter? I mean, you could point to a lot of things and say they lost the game because of this, because of that. Well, among them is the third quarter. When you're playing a really good team, it might be a good idea to score in the third quarter. Iggy, what does he have to answer for? What did he do wrong in the third quarter?
Well, I mean, the third quarter, it was incredible. The Chiefs get the ball first, and Mahomes throws a pick on their third play from scrimmage. The Niners get the ball at the Chiefs' 44 and punt. That's incredible. They had the ball at the Chiefs' 44, up 7. First play from the shotgun, incomplete pass. Next play, false start. Next play, incomplete pass. Next play, incomplete pass. Next play, punt. Sorry, 3rd and 15 was a scramble, excuse me. Next play, punt. So they had an opportunity to once again get a double-digit lead. They had the ball in Kansas City territory. They went backward and punted. That was the beginning of it.
And I would like to point out, it was the beginning of it, and it was the beginning of a tendency to just pass the ball.
Yeah.
He has the best running back in the league. they can run. They can get closer, at least to a field goal running. And McCaffrey didn't touch the ball.
No.
Okay.
And like every time he's folded in a Super Bowl, in the second half, he's gotten away from his running game every single time. And his offense falls apart in the second half of these Super Bowls. Much better in the first half. So next drive, he gets the ball and they go pass for -8, pass to McCaffrey for 7, pass incomplete on third down, punt.
Okay, 3 and out, and again, never uses his running game. This is when Ira Miller calls me up on the phone and says, Lowell, what's he doing? He never learns. What's their next
Their next drive, they finally give the ball to McCaffrey, but they run him up the middle, which hasn't had success all game, as opposed to running him to the perimeter. He goes nowhere. 2nd and 10, pass. 3rd and 10, pass, punt. So that's your third.
Okay.
That's another 3 and out. So at this point, his offense is totally dead.
Dead.
And
you know, you could argue whether or not he should have fired Wilkes. I think it's okay. Iggy actually feels Wilkes got a raw deal. We're not going to get into that. But the point is, Kyle, that's a whole 15 minutes that he didn't do anything. And maybe 3 points would have helped that or a touchdown. So the point is, he needs, and when Iggy asked him right after the game, he just gave a snotty answer. Somebody needs to ask him, or he needs to come forward and explain his play calling in the third quarter, which is among the causes of their loss. We're not talking about the coin toss. We're talking about bad play calling. Iggy, what else does he have to answer for in this game?
how about the fact that they couldn't pick up a blitz all game?
Oh, explain how that worked.
He had no answers for it. The Chiefs wanted to bring extra pressure, a 5th rusher, a 6th rusher, and the 49ers had no answer for it. That what he kept doing was going empty backfield, 5 offensive linemen, everyone out, split out as a wide receiver, and try to throw quick passes that were not available because the Chiefs were playing really good press man-to-man coverage, bump and run. So 10 times at least in the game, the Chiefs got someone completely unblocked in Purdy's face. That's on Kyle. That's
not
him
on
getting
Purdy.
Schematically by Steve Spagnuolo. That's
so,
on Kyle.
Yeah, so Spagnuolo figured him out. And Kyle never figured out the counter move. He just relentlessly let the blitzer come in and throw to Deebo Samuel, which didn't work.
Well, on the 2 most important plays of the game, they had a 3rd and 4 near midfield in regulation, about 2 minutes left. Unblocked blitzer, pass to Jawan Jennings is broken up. Ayuk was open. And then on the final play of overtime, unblocked blitzer, pass to Jennings, overthrown, thrown away. Ayuk was open. But in both cases, Purdy had no freaking time to look around. He had a predetermined throw. And so basically this issue ruined the 2 most important downs of the season for the Niners.
And the issue is, let me try to rephrase it and tell me if I'm wrong. It's the issue is they were doing Kansas City the same thing, blitzing an extra man, and Kyle didn't have an extra man to pick up the blitz and never figured out the counter move, i.e. he lost it to Spagnuolo. Spagnuolo beat him.
Yeah, like if you watch the final play of the game where Chris Jones comes free and everyone blames Spencer Burford, well, maybe that play would have had a chance if George Kittle would have stayed in and blocked. Instead, he runs this little nothing route. He's not a threat at all in the play, and they only have 5 blockers. So maybe if there had been a different design in the final play and George Kittle had stayed in a block, they would have been able to pick up all of the rushers, but they couldn't.
Okay.
So that's another one for Kyle.
So one of the questions is, why did you see these blitzes? And if so, why didn't you adjust?
Yeah.
That's another reason, aside from the coin toss, another reason you lost the game.
Yeah.
Because you could not adapt. And Andy Reid adjusted to things as the game went on.
Mm-hmm.
It's my working hypothesis. Let me try to say this clearly, that Kyle is very clever at doing his scripted plays, 25, 15, however. But once he's off the script and he has to think by the seat of his pants. He's not good. Can't adjust. That's why he doesn't do well in big games in the second half.
Exactly. Agree. More stuff. So you wanted the ball first for whatever reason in overtime. Fine. You get the ball. You're down at the 9-yard line. It's 4th and 4 from the 9. Earlier in the game, you picked up a 4th and 3. You don't go for it, which means you don't really trust your offense to pick up 4 yards. You don't want to put the game in the hands of your offense. You want to put it in the hands of your defense. And Steve Wilks against Patrick Mahomes. Why? Why'd you lose confidence in that offense? The offense was better than the defense all year.
Right. And Steve Wilks, who are you going to fire in 2 days? Clearly, you
why
didn't
would
think
you
that
want
much
to put it all on him? You don't trust him.
Yeah. You don't trust him.
No.
May I add something? On 3rd down, they threw Purdy threw an incompletion. So they had 3rd and 4, correct?
Yes.
Well, that's a perfect place to run it because if you have guts, you're going to go for 4 downs. Run it.
You see the run. You see the blitz coming from the right. You could toss it to the left, get Christian McCaffrey running behind Trent Williams. I mean, that would be. You might get a first down like that. But you didn't do that.
Yeah.
Why would you not put the ball in the hands of the offensive player of the year in such a critical spot?
Right. And if you don't get the first down, you get it the next time.
Right.
So what I want to say is there are certain coaches at the crisis moment who have guts, who are on fire. Andy Reid was like that. Bill Walsh was like that. This guy, he was timid. He lost because on 3rd and 4th down, he was timid. Yeah. He didn't have the fire you want from a head coach.
No.
He has to answer for that. Why were these plays? Why didn't you go for the on 4 downs, and why didn't you go for the touchdown? The minute you got that took the field goal, you knew you were either going to be tied or lose. And please don't tell me there was going to be a 3rd possession. There was never going to be a 3rd possession. You knew you were either, well, if you tied, there would be. But the point is, you weren't going to hold Mahomes back. That's why you fired Wilks 2 days later.
Right. And then the final thing he needs to answer for, a lot of people who made their predictions for this game on like a statistical analysis basis pointed to one stat. Been up 4.5 yards per carry in the regular season. That's 24th out of 32 teams. They can't stop the run. The Niners have Christian McCaffrey. Chiefs can't win. And then McCaffrey averaged 3.6 yards per carry against him and fumbled. What happened there? Is Christian McCaffrey overrated? Is the Chiefs defense underrated? Or did you not figure out how to get the running game going? I thought you were the run game guru, and instead you spent like 25% of the game in empty backfields. What was going on there? You couldn't figure out how to get the run game going. Why? What's the point of having such an expensive, great running back if you just give up on that? Or you can't even succeed with it? Any defense can stop you?
So what I want to summarize here, as a former working journalist, what I'm looking for in the coverage is addressing these points. I'm not looking for, it wasn't Kyle's fault, or, they lost again, their feelings are hurt. Now they have to start all over. I'm not a psychologist. They're not don't tell me about their feelings. Tell me what happened in the game. Ira Miller would have told what happened in the game, and he would have gotten those answers from Shanahan, or no comments. He would have put him on the spot, because it's what journalists are supposed to do. It's not what fans are supposed to do. Fans, you're okay. It's what journalists are supposed to do. You're not supposed to get on the bandwagon and say, it's all right, dear. It's all your feelings. You failed, but you failed in a good way. No, there is no such thing as a good loss. No such thing.
Yeah, you're not here.
Coach is answerable.
Yeah, the journalists aren't here to police the discussion. The journalists are here to ask the tough questions. And this is the time you lose a Super Bowl like that. There's a lot of tough questions you got to ask. You don't just turn around and say, hey, don't blame this guy.
Right.
Oh, okay.
You're not there to massage the coach's feelings. You're there to ask the pertinent questions. And I didn't hear them, and nor did I see Kyle step forward like Burford did, like Purdy did after the game, and say it's on me. I never saw the coach say that. And you know what, Iggy? I don't admire it.
Okay. I think one reason so many people rush to defend Kyle Shanahan is that so many people have anointed him an elite head coach. They already have. He's accomplished so much. Pretty much all you could accomplish other than winning a Super Bowl. And so when he loses another Super Bowl, it's like, how do you explain that you think he's elite when he just did it again? Well, it's not his fault. It was Steve Wilkes. There is an explanation. Okay. Is that valid? Like, is Kyle Shanahan an elite head coach who's a victim of circumstance?
Okay. Why don't we try to name current NFL coaches who are elite? And I want to have a visual metaphor for this. Think of the Pantheon, guys who are in the Pantheon and guys who are outside. I would say clearly Andy Reid is in the Pantheon.
Yeah, no question. He just got his 3rd Super Bowl. He's right there with Walsh in terms of rings and Gibbs.
Anybody else in the Pantheon?
I would say John Harbaugh. He has 1 Super Bowl, and his team has been really good the last few years. Beat the Niners.
I would say John Harbaugh. Now, there are 2 other places. One is the waiting room. You're not allowed into the Pantheon, and the other is you're on the street looking at the outside at the building. Okay. Is there any other coach currently in the NFL who's in the inner sanctum in the Pantheon?
I could think of one more. It might be controversial, but I'm going to say Jim Harbaugh.
It's very interesting what you're saying, and it is controversial.
Yeah.
He got to a Super Bowl like Kyle, and he lost
to his brother.
To his brother. So he's in the select group since the 49ers were really good of having lost Super Bowls. Now they've lost 3. One was Harbaugh, but Harbaugh just won the national championship in college. I don't think Kyle could do that. So you know what? I'll let you put him in the inner sanctum.
Yeah,
but he has to get coffee
right there with his brother.
Coffee for the other.
I think Jim and John Harbaugh are both top level coaches. Very similar. Yeah.
So now here's the key question. Does Kyle get in the inner sanctum? Is he in the waiting room or is he on the street?
Ooh. I think he's in the waiting room, even though he doesn't have any Super Bowl rings. And I think other coaches who are in the waiting room, he might be the only one in the waiting room without a Super Bowl ring, because it seems like he's accomplished everything you could accomplish as a coach other than win it all. We'll give him credit for that.
Who else?
So he's in the waiting room.
Who's in the waiting room? Who else is in the waiting room?
McVay.
Sean Payton.
Payton is in the waiting room. He may stay there forever. Mike McCarthy may have been in the waiting room at one time, but they kicked him out. They told him to go home.
No, he's on the street.
Car got towed.
He's on the street. Looking at can't get in the building.
No.
So that's it. Now, why do you not put Kyle in the inner sanctum?
You have to be a champion to be in the inner sanctum.
Right. That's it. That's the bottom line.
It kind of
have
matters.
To have one.
You have to.
Really matter. You have to have won a Super Bowl.
I mean, in Sean McVay's case, 1 isn't enough.
Right. He's in the waiting room, Sean McVay.
Is 1 enough for Kyle?
Let's see when and how. Let's see if, when, and how. But right now we're saying he's very good. Very few get into the waiting room. And you have waiter service there. They have nice wine. But it's better in the inner sanctum. You get massages and get to watch movies. It's better in the inner sanctum.
Yeah,
but
his waiting room is like the one of those clubs at the airport where you get in for free and you get all kind of free. It's nice, but you don't want to be there forever.
United Lounge. He's in the United Lounge. Yeah, he's in the lounge.
It's nice for an hour. Yeah.
But anyway, I agree with you. You got to win a Super Bowl. Bottom line. Otherwise, you're not in the inner sanctum, and he does not. Whatever excuse you want to make. Well, the guy dropped a punt, and he didn't win the Super Bowl. He doesn't get in the inner sanctum. And
he could be in the waiting room.
Oh, he is in the waiting room.
Yeah, he's cordially invited.
And it's nice there. But we're giving Jim Harbaugh ahead of him into the inner sanctum.
Yeah,
I like it.
We are.
And I'm going to tell you another thing, Iggy. The Chargers they are an instant contender. With that quarterback and that head coach, they used to be a joke. Forget it. They're going to be really tough.
I agree. And you know who else is in the waiting room? Dan Campbell.
He is in the waiting room.
He's in the waiting room. And we made fun of him because he went for it on 4th down and it didn't work out against the Niners. But we're also being very critical of Kyle for not going for it on 4th down in overtime. And one thing about Dan Campbell, he definitely would have gone for it on 4th down in that situation. The Lions have gotten better every single year under him. Let's see what happens with him. If he could win a Super Bowl before Kyle.
Yeah. May I tell you who's not in the waiting room?
Who?
The guy in Philly.
No.
Sirianni. What's his
name?
Sirianni.
No, but Big Dom is.
Big Dom patrols the place. He patrols the place.
Yeah. All right. Let's do a little sleeper picks. Sleeper picks. So if you guys didn't hear, I'm giving away a signed Christian McCaffrey jersey. All you got to do to get it is click on the link in the description, sleeper.com/promo/Cohn, COHN. Use the promo code Cohn, COHN on your first deposit, and you'll get entered to win a signed Christian McCaffrey jersey. And over there on Sleeper, you can make deposits on, daily fantasy stuff like the Warriors, like we did on the earlier last year. So, Dad, why don't we show them how it's done with Stephen Curry, 29.5 points against the Lakers at home tomorrow, more or less.
I would never bet less on him. He's the most wonderful player, and he's going to be hot, and he's such a good 3-point shooter. More.
And it's the Lakers. How do you say Lakers? How do you say Lakers when you're in Brooklyn?
Lakers.
The Lakers.
There's no R. Lakers.
It's IZ, right?
Lakers, yeah.
Draymond Green, 10.5 points.
No, forget it. No.
Triple single?
Yeah, triple single.
Andrew Wiggins. Okay, Andrew Wiggins. 4.5 rebounds.
I think he'll get more than that. Is he playing good these days?
Let's see one of the things I like about Sleeper is you can click on the guy's name and see what he did. He got 7 rebounds in the last game and 6 before that. So it looks like he's turning it on.
Yeah.
A little bit. Good job, Andrew. Kuminga. What are we going to get from Kuminga? Blocks. Half a block for Kuminga. Will he have a block in this game? Let's see if he had a block.
Is he a blocker?
He had one last game, but none in the game before that. That's a tough one.
No, I'm going under on the blocks. Under for Kuminga.
All right, Klay Thompson. Let's see. Assists 1.5 for Klay.
I'll go over.
He could be a playmaker in this game. All right, now let's get LeBron. Rebounds 6.5.
Let me admit something. I'm not wild about his game. Okay. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of, he's a volume shooter. He has to have the ball and all of that, but he's good. He does things. So I'll go over on rebounds.
He's done things. I love that. More. All right, let's lock it in. Submit the entry. That's how you play Sleeper. And remember, if you want the Christian McCaffrey signed jersey, you click on the link, use the promo code Cohn, and then boom, you're entered to win. Okay, back to the show. We got a lot of stuff to talk about. Dad, this is a bonus topic. We talked about it. Does Kyle Shanahan need a fresh start? A lot of people say, hey, wait a second. You can't make any definitive statements about what Kyle can or can't do in a Super Bowl because it took Andy Reid 20 years before he won his first, into his 60s, which is true. He did not win a Super Bowl with the Eagles, but then he went to the Chiefs and has won 3. So if Kyle is the next Andy Reid, does that mean that he needs to leave the 49ers in order to win a Super Bowl?
It's a plausible idea, and let me tell you why. Well, first of all, Andy Reid eventually got the great quarterback, and that made a big difference.
Thanks to Kyle.
But having yeah, thanks to Kyle. But having said that, when you fail and when you get discarded, if you're a serious person, you do some introspection and you take stock of yourself. Why was I let go? Not I hate them for letting me go,
Mhm.
although you could have both thoughts. I hate them, but what did I do that contributed to my downfall? I get the feeling that Andy Reid is the kind of guy who asked himself the hardest questions and changed. I think as long as Kyle is on the 49ers and always gets the support of the organization, the fans, and he seems to get a lot of support from the media, he's never put in a position where he has to say, what do I need to change about myself to be a champion? If the
Mm.
49ers were to let him go, and if he were a truly serious grown up, he would have to ask the questions I think Reed asked. And he might be a better coach and do better elsewhere. I always think there may be a benefit for failure. I do. If you're the kind of person who takes it as a personal challenge and is honest with yourself. So I think he may be a Super Bowl winner at the Niners. He may be, but he may be elsewhere once he's had to go through his mental Rolodex and be brutally honest with himself.
You know who also may have needed a fresh start and benefited from it and now is a champion? Jim Harbaugh.
Ah, I love what you're saying.
I'm not sure he ever
Perhaps.
would have won it with the 49ers. He went to a Super Bowl. He kind of blew it at the end. But then he went to Michigan and he had to come to terms with why it didn't work out with the 49ers, even though he had so much success. Now he's champion. Now he's back.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good point. So look, my feeling is that Kyle may win a Super Bowl with the Niners, although that team is getting older now. He may win a Super Bowl with the Niners. My feeling is he might win it quicker elsewhere. And
Yeah.
people say, well, if you don't have Kyle, who are you going to get? I don't know. I don't know who you're going to get. But do you always want to be wedded to the guy who comes in second? Is that what you're aiming for in sports?
Right.
And you say, well, he's really good. He gets us to the championship game. So what? A lot of people get to the championship game. It would hurt his feelings if they got rid of him after he gets the Super Bowl or the championship game. Who cares? This isn't about feelings. This is about results. It's not
Right.
about feelings.
And let's tie it back to the beginning. Again, if people say he's the next Andy Reid and Andy Reid's the best coach in the league, Andy Reid may have needed that fresh start. If he had stayed in Philadelphia, there's no guarantee he ever would have won a Super Bowl, that they would have won a Super Bowl. He leaves, he wins 3, they win 1. It may have been what's best for both sides. And that
Right.
could be what's going on here. Like they replaced him with Doug Peterson, won a Super Bowl. Is Doug Peterson as good as Andy Reid? No, but he won a Super Bowl.
Yeah. I think there could be an analogy there, and it's very interesting. People are so wedded to Kyle, the idea that maybe both the Niners and he would be better if he were to leave is probably anathema to most people. Plus, Iggy, the kid owner, just gave him an extension. What does he have? 3 more years?
Oh, yeah, it's true. And next week they might give him another extension. You never know.
Never know. They could extend him for life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They haven't extended him in about 6 months. Maybe they should do that again. Bucketed Chicken says it all starts from the top down. More blame should be put on Jed for not holding Kyle accountable. Ownership values money over winning.
I want to tell you something. That's an interesting comment. Iggy and I were talking recently, and I don't know if we said it on the air, but if I were running the team, i.e. Jed, I'd want independent analysis of what happened in that Super Bowl. I'd call up Mike Holmgren, a very important coach in Niners history. I say, Mike, I'm a lay person. We'll pay for you to come out here. Would you sit with me in one of the conference rooms and let's go over the offensive play calling, play by play. Tell me what you think Kyle wanted to do in ways I can understand, what you would have done, and grade each play. Then I would call in a defensive guy, Belichick. He's not doing anything. Bill, come out. We'll play golf. Would you sit and look at the defensive plays? Was Wilkes this bad? And if I were an owner, I would want to do all the background work, all the homework, so I could be at least knowledgeable and maybe helpful. And I think Jed should do that. Do I think Jed would do that? I'm not hopeful.
He's too comfortable. He likes to set up.
Eddie would. Eddie, look, Iggy, I'm telling you right now, Eddie would have fired Kyle Shanahan. He fired George Seifert, a two-time Super Bowl winner.
Yeah.
He fired Bill Walsh any number of times and then rehired him. Then I saw him fire him one time in New Orleans, and he rehired him the next morning. He would have fired Kyle Shanahan after last season when he got Brock Purdy hurt. Now a second time, after he blows it a second time, Eddie wasn't in it to come in second. No. Eddie has a big ego. Yeah. Eddie wants to be the best. He wants to be able to strut it. He wants to come in first. He would have gotten rid of this guy.
How would Eddie have acted after the game in Vegas, after the Niners lost in overtime? Controversial with the overtime rules. Did they know it? How would he have acted? Maybe right after the game.
If we're talking about Eddie when he was younger, he would have thrown a loaded, a full Coke can through the Coke machine, or he would have pulled the phone off the wall. He would have been shrieking at people. He would have taken Bill into a private room and fired him. Told him he was no good. He wouldn't have taken that.
Do you know what Jed did?
No.
He walked around the field as the confetti was coming down and hugged players on his team.
That's what Tom Sula did when they lost in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, well, he hired Tom Sula.
Yeah, he had there's a little Tom
they have
Sula
something
in
common.
there.
He pulled a Tom Sula after the game and hugged everyone and thanked them for their effort.
Jed. I don't think you thank them for their effort. You thank them for the win.
I'm just saying, man, you want to be Eddie? Act like Eddie. Sorry. This guy says you can't blame Kyle. This is a team sport, and the whole team dropped the ball. Andy Reid used to be a loser with the Eagles.
Hey, look, I'm blaming Kyle along with other people. I can blame Kyle. I just did it.
We just did. Brandon Green says draft a fullback, tight end, special teams returner. We're going to talk about all that. Kev F., where would you look to for the next Bill Walsh?
I don't have the slightest idea.
Good luck. Frank Tom Ocean says Cohn's on Eagles best show of the week. Thank you both.
Thanks, Frank.
Thank you. Bucket of Chicken agrees with Tom Ocean. Thank you, Bucket of Chicken. Obi-Wan 49. I swear my instinct watching was to run both third and fourths. Go for it on 4th and 4. I'm sure many thought the same because that's what the flow of the game required.
No question. And the only one who didn't feel that way was Kyle Shanahan.
Yeah. Charles Barkley says Cohn and Lombardi are the two primary alphas in the Niners media coverage space. Respect to you both. Jordan Matthews says it's pointless asking him pertinent questions because he doesn't have the dignity and accountability to answer them. He's narcissistic and smug. As a longtime fan, it's disrespectful to the game.
I sort of enjoy that comment.
Yeah, you said it. The Gold Rush 561 says, I'm not with the fire Kyle crowd yet, but I am with the stop being so damn stubborn head coach Kyle. He needs to change his ways soon. Don't forget what got you there. Hashtag run the damn ball, i.e. Terrell Davis. Real quick, I just want to look that up real quick. 1997 Broncos. Let me get the box score. It'll take me 2 seconds. In the Super Bowl, to play against the Packers, they win 31-24. This is Mike Shanahan's first Super Bowl victory as a head coach. John Elway is 12 of 22 for 123 yards and a pick. His quarterback rating in this game is 51. And they put up 31 points and win because Terrell Davis rushes 30 times for 157 yards and 3 touchdowns. That's what Mike
did. He beat Holmgren?
Yeah, he beat Holmgren. He beat Favre. Favre threw for 256 yards and 3 touchdowns. His quarterback rating was 91, and they lost.
So what the point is, Mike Shanahan had Elway, and he still ran more. This guy has Brock Purdy, who's a really good quarterback, but he's not yet Elway, and he passed more and had the best running back in the league and didn't run more. Yeah, that's another thing he ought to answer
Purdy
about.
was better in this Super Bowl than Elway was in that Super Bowl. Elway was like 37, 38 and completed 12 passes.
Yeah,
Better than that. And Kyle lost and scored 22 points.
yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. This guy, F9-5S49, says, greetings from Hamburg, Germany. Much appreciated, you and your dad. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Jordan Matthews, Kyle still thinks a straight beats a flush. LOL. Abu Marco 23 says, my issue with Kyle Shanahan's Super Bowl performance was adjusting to Spags' pivot to man coverage by dialing up passes for Debo, who was hobbled and not good versus man.
Absolutely correct.
Yeah, it's another thing he needs to answer for. Patton Diaz says, Kyle needs to work on the 2-minute drill. Seeing Mahomes drive down the field in OT so quickly is something that we need in our arsenal. Agree.
Hey.
Geo dude, love you both, but all this talk of Kyle Shanahan leaving is moot. Jed is getting everything he could ask for with Kyle. Business is booming, Super Bowl or not.
I think there's a lot of truth to that.
Well, then now that the Cowboys. Stephen Carmichael says, how can you be serious with the NFL? Like, haven't you seen all the holds and missed PI calls? Rigged. No one cares about the trades at this time with this fraudulent establishment.
I want to move on.
Stephen Carmichael, why do writers not expose the NFL? Have you written anything about the fraudulent business grant? Most defended sport.
Okay. We're talking about the 49ers.
Pink Trip. Jim Harbaugh told Mayoko his biggest regret in Super Bowl loss was not running the ball more. Is Kyle ever going to learn?
That's the big question.
Okay. Let's get to the main topic of our show. Players Bill Walsh would not retain. Take it from here.
Okay. I'll give a little context. I liked Bill very much. Very much. He was ruthless when it came to football. The only thing he cared about was winning. He did not care about players' feelings. I don't believe he may have acted nice to them, but he didn't care about their feelings. And his philosophy was get rid of a player a year early rather than a year late. He told everyone that. He was on the record with that. Get rid of a player a year early as opposed to a year late. So let's start with offense. I'll go one, Iggy, and then you'll go one.
Sure.
I believe if Bill Walsh were alive and coaching this team, he would get rid of Deebo Samuel. And I'll say why. Iggy says that Deebo's a very nice man and he's thoughtful. He's good in the locker room. He answers questions, and that's lovely. That's fine. But his job is to really be an effective wide receiver. He doesn't really run. He's not a great route runner. He doesn't really block hard when the play is not coming to him downfield. He's turned, and he doesn't have the greatest hands. So, like, Ayuk is a better wide receiver than Deebo, and he's turned it to kind of a gimmick guy. If you can get him a screen pass and he's so strong, he can get a few times a game. He can get a lot of yards, although he wasn't able to do it in the Super Bowl. But in terms of a regular wide receiver, I think he's now on the decline, and he's given the most you can get. And I don't think you're going to get that much out of him in the future. Better to get draft choices for him to rebuild a roster that's getting a little older and to fill his place. Iggy, do you agree with me?
I do. And plus, they're going to be paying him $28 million this year. That's what quarterbacks get. He doesn't have that kind of an impact on the offense. They don't really need him anymore. Yeah, I think Bill Walsh would get rid of him. They don't save a lot of money by trading him, but his value's going to go down. And in a trade, they could probably get much more from this year than next year. I would trade him.
Right. Yeah. Bill, I'm saying I don't have a pipeline to Bill, but I feel he would trade him. Anyone on offense you would suggest?
I think Bill Walsh would release or trade Kyle Juszczyk.
I agree.
Great player, best fullback in the league, but he's definitely declining. And, the Niners got rid of Tom Rathman when he was 31. Juszczyk's about to be 33. He's not the blocker he used to be. They almost never hand him the ball, and they throw him like one pass every other game, and he's going to make almost $8 million this year. I think it's time.
I 100% agree with you. again, it's not a knock on Juszczyk. He's
No.
been a very good player, but
Excellent.
I think he's reached his zenith and is now going down the other side of the hill. And Bill, ruthless. He might really like the guy. He might want to be friends with him when his career is over, but you're out. And I'll tell you someone else, I feel fairly confident Bill would get rid of his Kittle. Again, I feel that I've never met Kittle, but I feel he's really grown up in a nice way. I kind of like him, although we're going to talk about him a little later. But Iggy, he only had 2 receptions in the game. For how many yards?
4.
4. You can't have that. And now there are other things they might have thrown to other people. They might have asked him to block, blah, blah, blah. Kelsey's better now. Kelsey's a more important player in their offense. So I would say, thank you very much, George. We're going to trade you to wherever and you get draft choices. So to me, those would be the 3 guys on offense. And again, you trade him a year too soon rather than a year too late.
That's the point.
That's Bill's axiom.
And it seems painful to trade George Kittle now, but the guy just had 4 yards in a Super Bowl. It might be the time. Yeah. It might be a year too soon, or you might be approaching too late. If you wait, you might get nothing for this guy. So on defense, how about easy one? He's a free agent, Chase Young. They traded a 3rd round pick for him at the deadline. They really gloated about the trade, like Washington didn't know what they were doing with in general, that he was going to come here and play so well because of the culture and the this and the that and that. And he just jogged around the field, loafed around a lot.
Yeah.
Can't bring him back.
Now he's a free agent, so you wouldn't be releasing him, but you wouldn't be bringing him back.
No.
So I don't think he made any impact. Maybe he did a little in the Super Bowl, but again, I'm going to repeat something I said last week. A coach called me up, a retired NFL coach, and we were chatting, and he used the adjective disgusting for how Chase Young played in the first 2 playoff games. This was before the Super Bowl. He said, if I had him, I would trade his butt. And it turns out he was the 2nd player taken in his draft.
Yes, he was.
He was supposed to be a tremendous impact player. And Washington, you could say, oh, Washington, they're so stupid. They couldn't wait to get rid of him. And
he got drafted ahead of Justin Herbert.
Wow.
He was the 2nd pick in the draft. Herbert was 6 in that year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He got drafted ahead of Brandon Ayuk.
He's not. Those are much better players than he is. He's no longer an impact player. And my guess is, unless someone motivates him, you're going to see him fade out of the league way premature to what you'd think. May I?
But I mean, he was in a contract year, and the Niners were in the Super Bowl. If that doesn't motivate you, it's never going to happen.
Right.
Yeah.
So okay, so he's out on the defense. I'm going to say someone else, Eric Armstead. And here's why, Iggy. When he plays, he's pretty good.
Yeah.
He's a good run stopper. He's not particularly a quarterback sacker, but maybe that's not his job. He's a good run stopper, although they had a lot of trouble stopping the run this season. But Iggy, he gets hurt all the time. So in a 17-game season, he's going to miss games every season. So again, for me,
he missed 5 this year and 8 the year before that.
Previous year 8, 5 this season. That's a lot of games. 8 is really half of the season. The other's a quarter almost or more. So what I'm saying is, I'm thinking as Bill would think. I don't want to risk it with this guy anymore. I want to get somebody else. I would rather get rid of him a year early than a year too late. And what's more, Iggy, with him, it may already be a year too late.
Yeah. He's had plantar fasciitis the last 2 seasons. It's going to be, it might be already too late.
It may be already too late. So for me, if I'm the theoretical Bill, and Bill, I know I'm not the theoretical you, I'm conjecturing that he would get rid of Eric Armstead. Anybody else on defense, Iggy?
Not on defense.
Okay.
I'll go with special teams, though.
Yeah.
Jake Moody.
Oh.
I'm sorry. Like, he may have a bright future in the NFL, but somewhere else. He inspires no confidence, and You need like a constant at some place on your team. That would be a good spot. Kicker. You don't need to worry about him missing extra points in playoff games. He missed a kick in every single playoff game.
Every single game.
Every single one.
Yeah. You know, what would happen is Bill would talk about him. Moody says, yeah, we really like him. We had to get rid of him, but we wish him luck. But behind the scenes, he would tell his coaches, get this guy the hell out of here. I need a kicker. I don't need anxiety. I need a kicker I can believe in. And that's how he would talk about him, you know, not in the public. Get him the hell out of here.
In 94,
I'd get him the hell out of there.
Yeah, I would too. In 94, the Niners had a rookie kicker on their Super Bowl championship team, Doug Bryan. They drafted him in the 3rd round, a lot like Jake Moody. He wasn't good. And midway through 95, they got rid of him, and he spent most of his career in New Orleans. So no patience. Sorry. This is a really, really good team. If you can't rise to the occasion, go play for New Orleans. They're not playing for anything. They'll love you.
You know, I remember one time I was with Bill in the Stanford athletic department, and his kicker with some of the Super Bowl teams was Ray Wersching. And I don't know the whole history. I've never really looked it up. But Bill and I were in his office chatting, and then he got a phone call, and he said, Lowell, excuse me, I have to go into the conference room. And he came back 20 minutes later, and what happened? He said, Ray Wersching, I guess Bill had gotten rid of him years before, you know, when he was at the Niners. And he said, Ray came up. He was so angry at me, Lowell. He's still angry. And I had to sit and let him vent on me and to say it wasn't personal. And I didn't witness it. I was in the other room, but Bill exited, came back, and he was shaken. He was shaken, but he made he didn't say I made the wrong decision. He said I didn't like him to be so angry at me.
I got one more person that can't be back on this team. Ray McCloud.
Tell me.
I mean, the one mistake he made in the Super Bowl, he didn't fall on the ball. It wasn't his fumble. It hit Darrell Luter Jr.'s foot. Unfortunate. And he made a split-second decision to try to scoop it up and run with it instead of falling on it. Sorry, that's a critical decision. You're the punt returner. They need a new punt returner. Can't have him on the team.
Bill always, I was in team meetings with him, and he would say, if the ball is bouncing, don't pick it up and advance it. Fall on it. Iggy, he said it before every game. He was so obsessed with that. So he broke a Bill rule. Bill would have gotten rid of him. And I want to tell you who else Bill would have gotten rid of. Feliciano.
Yeah, I agree.
Because you don't badmouth a teammate publicly. That would have been a no-no for Bill. We're a team, and you don't go after Burford. That's who he went after, right?
Yes.
You either keep your mouth shut or you handle it privately. You don't make it to seem like we're disunited. Yeah. Bill would say, get his butt out of here, send him to Buffalo. That's what he would have said.
Yeah, I agree. So those would be the ones that Bill would get rid of. Let's take a couple more super chats and finish up with our final topic. R. Davis Niner Gang says their offensive line was better on both sides, speaking on Denver. They did have a good offensive line. Shanahan put it together. Anthony Martinelli, new member. Aru Illustri says, being that Purdy is an anticipatory passer, they need receivers that run crisp routes. I agree. Speaking of Purdy, I think it's interesting after the fallout of the Super Bowl that people have now combed through every little moment. His stock went up. He's the one guy on this offense who really acquitted himself well, to use a Jim Harbaugh'ism. Things were falling apart all around him. He maintained his composure, didn't make any big mistakes, and made a few nice plays. His stock is up.
Yeah. He's a good quarterback. And I have something I want to admit. Immediately after the game, in the heat of the loss, I wrote that he's not in the same universe as Mahomes. I wrote it on Twitter. Now, look, I think he probably isn't. I don't think anyone in the league is, but it was a snotty thing to say. And in retrospect, thinking back over the game, all hell was breaking loose around Purdy because Kyle was not adequately protecting him at all. No. And he functioned very well. Iggy, you said you had given him a B, but in retrospect, it might be a B+ or an A-.
Yeah, when I was watching the game, it didn't sink in just how much pressure he was under that wasn't necessarily his fault. And going back and watching it, yeah, it seemed like, given the fact that Kyle was kept calling plays for Debo and not picking up these blitzes, just the fact that Brock Purdy avoided so many sacks and didn't turn the ball over and made some plays. Yeah, very impressive. More like an A minus.
Yeah.
More like an A
And
minus.
again, I want to say, I don't think going forward with this group, it's Brock Purdy who would hold them back from winning a Super Bowl. I think it's Shanahan. I think a good coach could win a Super Bowl with Brock Purdy. He's really a good quarterback.
He's a
I
very good
think,
quarterback.
yeah, I think his foot is on the gas. I think Shanahan's foot's on the brake. And I think he's more of an impediment than Purdy, who's no impediment at all. I
No, and
admire Brock Purdy.
he couldn't overcome Kyle Shanahan and win in spite of him, but he didn't sync with Kyle because Kyle's stock is very much down. Purdy's isn't. And what I think a big reason for that too is not just what happened during the game, but after. Since then, Brock Purdy, 24-year-old Brock, has been a model of leadership. Every time he's in front of a microphone, he says, we just went 3 and out too much in the third quarter, and that's on me. I can't let that happen. And it's not like confessional, like taking you play by play and you're like, man, I'm really lost my confidence. I blew it. It's like, no, I'm the leader of this team. We didn't play well enough on offense. I'm going to assert my leadership by taking responsibility for this stuff. And it's what Kyle Shanahan never does, hasn't do, won't do, for whatever reason.
Can't do.
Can't do.
Can't do.
Can't do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine what some of the players privately in the locker room think. Coach never takes responsibility.
No.
He's fine.
Our
He
quarterback
means
does.
the players
Yeah.
are no good, but the quarterback says, it's on me. I shouldn't have gone 3 and out 3 times.
Mhm.
And so let me just say this. The quarterback who's 24 acted more like a coach than the coach who's in his 40s.
Right. And so now what's interesting, for years, Kyle always could point the finger at Jimmy, who was always trying to point the finger at Kyle. And the two of them were kind of perfect for each other in their unwillingness to take responsibility. But now he has someone who's like a counterpoint to him. He's unlike Jimmy. He takes it very serious. He's very professional. He's a natural leader. And I think the contrast between him and Kyle is only going to make Kyle look worse until Kyle changes.
Iggy, I don't ever really want to go to football games anymore or cover this stuff, but I would love to cover Brock Purdy. I would love to see the arc of his career. He's intriguing and he's really good. He's really good. And he seems like a really good guy who takes his business seriously. Iggy, we're leaving out a topic.
What?
George Kittle.
Yes.
We are. And this ties into the very thing we started with, things that Kyle should be asked. This is something Kittle should be asked, or someone in the local newspapers should write about. And if they have written about it, I apologize. I haven't seen it. So, Iggy, tell what happened.
Well, we talked about it on our emergency codes on last week, but if you didn't see, George Kittle, first drive of the game, McCaffrey fumbles, and George Kittle, instead of blocking his man, George Karlaftis, sort of lets up and says, "Hi, George." And George doesn't respond. He dives on the ball and gets it. That's the play. Kittle said, "Hi, George."
So instead of playing to the whistle,
yeah,
Kittle is being cute.
Cute.
This is the Super Bowl. Now, I got to tell you, come back to Bill Walsh. Hey, coach, I got it. They were mic'd up, and when CMC dropped the ball for us, Kittle said, "Hi, George," to George Karlaftis, didn't block him, and someone else was able, and Karlaftis was able to get the ball. Send him to Buffalo. I don't want him here anymore. I don't want a player like that.
Yeah.
I don't want that. That may,
professional.
Russ Francis would have got the ball. Charlie Young would have got the ball.
Yeah.
Brent Jones would have got the ball. Are you kidding? They would have stood there and said, "Hi, George." This isn't high school football. This was the goddamn Super Bowl. So here's the other thing. Where's the article about that? Where is someone calling up, calling up Kittle and say, what do you have to say about that, George?
Yeah.
Where is someone asking Kyle? What do you have to say about that, Kyle?
Yeah.
That when your running back drops the ball, this guy's saying, hi, George, and George is the one who recovers? That's very bad. It's not a little bad. It's like, oh,
No.
Lowell, he's such a hater. That's very bad. And I'm going to say something else. Two bad things happened on that play. McCaffrey fumbled, and this guy said, hi, George. Which is worse? Hi, George.
Hi, George.
People fumble. McCaffrey is a terrific player. He's a real professional. He's not a fumbler. It must have killed him that he fumbled, and his guy didn't have his back. His guy could have made it right, and he would have been eternally grateful. And this guy's playing games and saying, hi, George, while George is diving for the ball and getting McCaffrey's fumble. I blame Kittle more than I blame McCaffrey because fumbles happen. But hi, George is never supposed to happen.
No.
Where is the article about that?
It's the difference between a mental mistake and a physical mistake.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can live with
you can excuse a physical mistake, but a mental mistake in that moment, not when you're 30, not when you're an all-pro tight end.
Right.
Sorry.
You know, Iggy, it's even worse than a mental mistake. It's a character mistake.
Yeah.
I understand in baseball, you throw to the wrong base.
You forget how many outs there are.
You forget how many outs. You don't say, what kind of person is that? But when Kittle is in the Super Bowl and every inch, every second matters, and he says, hi, George, that's not a mental mistake. That's way beyond that.
It's a character. It's a character flaw.
I think so. And I'm saying I think he's a good guy. But how the hell did he do that?
It's funny, one of the greatest tight ends in franchise history. He's been in 2 Super Bowls. This one he had 2 catches for 4 yards. The last one he had 4 catches for 36 yards. That's what he did.
Well, he's declining. That's why Bill would get rid of him. And the first one wasn't so great either.
He had 40 yards in 2 Super Bowls. Yeah. I think it's time. I think the George Kittle era is over. He's quite charming, though, and maybe he can take that personality to WWE where you have a microphone in the ring with you and people can hear you what you're saying.
And you could say,
you know what it seemed like? It seemed like he knew he was mic'd up and he wanted to do something, like he wanted to play it up for that. Like, focus on the game.
I think you're supposed to be focusing until they blow the whistle. You're playing.
You're playing
the game.
Alex G says, you can argue Kelsey is a bigger clown, but in the Super Bowl, Travis Kelsey was locked in while George Kittle was clowning around in his biggest game, not receiving, fumble. He will never win a Super Bowl acting like that.
Well, I think we could agree on that.
Boxing fan times 4 says Niners should get a soccer player from the San Jose Earthquakes as a kicker. Cowboys have former soccer player as a kicker. Love it. Helperman 123 says Brock is still tier 2. He missed some throws too. Brock needs to make calls to the line or huddle. He may be tier 1 if he actually developed the right way. Well, it's not his fault they won't let him audible. That's Kyle, the control freak. Geo dude, what is Kittle worth in a trade?
3rd.
Ooh, yeah. Austin Cross, your relationship inspires me to connect with my dad every day. Thank you for modeling such a strong relationship.
Thank you, Austin.
Thank you, Austin. Alex G. They need Fred Warner's intensity and leadership on offense. Mahomes kept team focused and fired up the whole game. Hopefully Brock grows into that.
I don't think Brock is as far from that as you think. I think he's a very serious, very tough guy.
I think he's very intense too. All right, that's the show. Cohn Zone. Late edition. Thanks for tuning in. And stay tuned for any emergency editions of the Cohn Zone because they drop when you least expect it. Dad, I'll see you soon.
I love you, Iggy.
Love you too.